What's going on, everyone? Yes, you read that title correctly. We are entering the end of spoilers for set 6. We now have every single leader revealed as of this video, which means expect a way too early tier list for you all, which is going to be an absolute blast. I know my patrons over there have been talking about it like, oh, when can we expect a tier list? Guys, it's coming, I promise. Thank you all for supporting the channel. Let's dive straight into it because we got a lot of cards to talk about today. Starting us off with a bunch of draft cards. I think this post actually had some duplicates, but a lot of these are just going to be kind of unplayable in Premiere, but are maybe it'd be fun for Twin Suns or something related to draft, or maybe you can come up with something that's actually pretty solid. First off is ASP Laborer, 2 resource ground unit, 1/4 colorless with restore 1 droid tag. Fun in a droid deck. It's a 2 resource 1/4 weak. It's got restore 1, yes, but like Yaddle and Mina Bonteri have a 2/4 style line with restore 1 and potentially other abilities. So yeah, this is basically just unplayable. Next up, we got Emissaries from Ryloth, 5-cost ground unit in Cunning Heroism. It's a 4/6. When played, you may give a unit -3/-0 for this phase. Honestly, this seems like a pretty solid draft card. I could see this giving you a lot of value when it comes down. So I think that's actually quite interesting. We've got Muckraker Crab Droid, a 3-cost ground unit in Aggression Villainy. It's a 4/3 Separatist Droid, and while it's unit ready, you can't attack it. This is actually kind of interesting to me. Love the art, by the way. Love the clones coming in trying to kill that crab droid. A 4/3 is pretty aggressive. Now it does die to turn 1 play sometimes. However, we've seen a lot of Yaddles and Adi Galias and Karases and that type of stat line, the 2/4 stat line, more frequently. So 3 power is less common, but you know, not being able to be attacked immediately can potentially get in some damage. Not the worst. Next up, we got Umbaran Mobile Cannon. This is a 6-cost ground unit in Vigilance. This is a 7/3, and the first time this unit would take damage each phase, you prevent that damage. This seems like a powerhouse in draft, to be honest. I mean, putting this thing down and your opponent just having to attack it with multiple units every single turn, if they want to deal with it, seems disgusting. And a lot of the times you're not gonna have too many units. You put up a Sentinel that can prevent the second attack from coming in. This seems like a pretty strong draft card. Next up, we've got Imperial Dark Trooper. This is a 2-cost ground unit in Command Villainy. It's a 3/3. It's literally just Battlefield Marine, but for the Imperial side, right? Instead of having Rebel Trooper, you got Imperial Trooper, and you got the droid tag. This seems like an auto include in a lot of decks. Like, a lot of decks are going to just immediately include this, and I'm actually excited. This is probably the most exciting out of all the draft cards, or the commons and uncommons that we've seen today. I absolutely love this card. Next up, we've got Assassin Probe, 5-cost ground unit in as a 4/4 colorless Separatist droid. When defeated, you deal 1 damage to each exhausted enemy ground unit. Kind of like the HK Assassin droid that we've had, but in this case, this is, you know, to enemy units. So, you know, when your opponent attacks this unit, they essentially take 5 damage to that unit back. I don't really know if you're going to be able to get any value out of this, but it's nice to reference that Clone Wars episode with oh my gosh, I forgot the ship. But yes, the Mandalorian emissary ship. We've got Inspiring Senator, 3-cost ground unit in colorless. It's a 3/3 Republic official. When defeated, the next official unit you play this phase costs 1 less. I was thinking maybe you could do something with Thrawn and making something cost 2 less. I mean, that can be powerful. There isn't really a whole lot of officials that you can, you know, really take advantage of with this effect. But I was thinking like maybe new Krennic, like if you're playing Thrawn Green, the new Krennic that costs like a crazy amount. I believe that guy is an official. I think maybe I'm wrong about that. But I believe that guy's an official, maybe like a Daedra or something. You know, if you go like 3-drop into, you know, reducing cost by 2, Daedra is a 4-drop. So that's a 4-drop 5/5 ambusher that creates a spy token. I mean, there's some fun things you can do with it, but I don't think it's like particularly strong. There's the ASP Laborer again. Centers a 1-cost ground unit in command. It's a 0/3. While you have the initiative, this unit gets +2/+0. Honestly, this seems pretty interesting. You know, this is obviously like a 50-50 shot to be a good card. It's kind of the way I think about it. But if you start with the initiative, it can be interesting. The problem with this, though, is it's not going to be good after the fact. And what I mean by that is, yes, you may be able to get the initiative in the beginning of the game, but you better get your value immediately. Because if you're a leader that wants to play 1-drops, you're probably playing multiple cards in the early game, which means you're probably not going to have the initiative, which means it's going to be a 0/3. But it is an official, so maybe that's relevant for someone. Next up is Inspector Shuttle. We got 2-cost space unit in colorless. It's a 1/3 Republic Vehicle Transport. And when you play, you name a card, then an opponent reveals their hand. For each copy of the name card in their hand, you give an experience token. So if you're able to name a correct card, it is a 2/4 in space, which isn't bad. It's not as aggressive as a lot of decks want it to be, but a 2/4 in space is totally fine. You're not often going to be able to get 2 cards with this to make it a 3/5, but it's going to be kind of a hit or miss on turn 1 for sure. You're not going to have a way to set this up for the most part. So something to really only play in the mid to late game, and I guess you're like a 2 resource 3/5 it's good, but a 2/4 not super exciting. Contraband Starhopper is the last of kind of the main draft cards. There's a couple more as we'll go through, but this is a 2-cost space unit in aggression. It's a 2/3 underworld vehicle fighter, straight up just an underworld card. If you're kind of looking for specific synergies, or if you're looking for a space unit in draft, you're going to pick this guy up and be totally fine with that. But those are some of the draft cards. Now we get to dive into a brand new leader, which came out just a couple of days ago in Jabba the Hutt. So Jabba the Hutt is a vigilance villainy leader. It's a 1 resource action to make a friendly damaged unit deal 1 damage to an enemy unit. If the friendly unit has 3 or more damage on it, it deals 2 damage instead. It deploys for 5 resources, a 2/8, which is a very beefy stat line. And when another friendly unit is dealt damage and survives, you may have that unit deal that much damage to an enemy unit. Use this ability only once each round. This can be a very strong ability, okay? Being able to basically reflect damage to enemy units is very strong. And there are a lot of situations where, there are a lot of units in the game where you can play it and it deals 2 damage to itself. Think of, I forgot the 2/5 that deals 2 damage from to itself when it comes into play. But for example, that you pay 1 action and suddenly you can deal 1 damage to something, right? I mean, you can do some cool things with Jabba. But I think, again, the main value of this is, imagine something like you're playing Jabba yellow, and you play Jabba, you then ambush out a boss, kill something, and then deal 3 to 4 damage to something else, right? Again, any enemy unit can get damage dealt to it, not just the ground units. So this actually does have some really interesting potential with it. I would have loved to see if it was any friendly unit, so like Jabba could attack and then reflect more damage back. To me, that wouldn't be too disgusting and too strong, because it is a 2/8, so it's not like you're going to dominate the board in terms of being able to put on pressure to your opponent, but it will really heavily control the board. This seems like a very interesting deck, especially in, again, colors that can have ambushers out around that curve. Even Command has some options if you were to timely out something. If you were to play like Jabba ECL and play like Gideon as an ECL target, can you imagine like you ambush out Gideon, you put an experience token like Jabba or another unit, you kill something with Gideon, and then you reflect that damage again back to something else. Like, that can do some really strong stuff. So I think there's a lot of potential here with Jabba. Initially I was like, not so sure, but I can see it. And there are cards that self-damage themselves to, get some value brewing. Like Death Trooper, for example, is 4 resources, deal 3 to something, 2 to your own unit, right? So that could do some value, do some cool things. I'm not sure if there's a unit that deals 3 to itself when it comes into play. I'm trying to think of something that would do that. There are some units that could deal damage to other units, like Crosshair, for example. Maybe a Jabba red deck is possible, where you're dealing damage to your own unit to deal damage to their base, and something goes that way. Or like a Fifth Brother, right? If you go red, again, Fifth Brother, dealing 1 damage to your own unit. And remember, it's whenever another friendly unit is dealt damage and survives. So Fifth Brother suddenly deals 1 to itself, 2 to another target. So that can be interesting as well. So there's a lot of potential here that I'm just kind of thinking about immediately when I think of Jabba. So I'm excited about this one. I don't think it's like crazy strong, but I think that you can really come back in the game, with Jabba. I mean, obviously, if you drop Sentinels in front of people, Grit could be a very powerful thing, like Lobot or something. It could do some cool things. Next up, we've got some more draft cards. We've got Crate Veteran, 3 resource ground unit, 4/3 in Heroism. Very straightforward. It's got the resistance tag. If those tags are relevant, maybe you play it, but it is a 3 resource 4/3, which is not particularly exciting with any abilities. Next up, we've got Duchess's Investigators. Now, this one actually seems solid. So this is a 5 resource ground unit in Cunning. It's a 4/4, and when you play it, you may disclose Cunning, and if you do, each opponent discards a random card from their hand. So this actually can do some really, really gross things. think about this just for a moment in like decks that could really attack your hand. If you curve out in Cunning, like Heroism, for example, Ahsoka Tano into Justice Investigators, that's a lot of discard while also putting pressure on your opponent. So I'm thinking about in that sense where you could really attack opponents' hands. And the fact that you discard a card at random is even stronger because you could hit their best card. If it's just your opponent discards a card like Ahsoka, in some cases, that can be better because Ahsoka gets an extra clause of being able to exhaust units potentially, depending on what they discard. But this will just hit their best card sometimes, and that can be gross. So, and especially on like that turn, if you're curving out with like Heroism, right? This thing, you might have like 2 cards in your opponent's hand when this thing comes down, and 50-50 shot to hit their best card, and then maybe they don't have anything to play that turn. That's the type of potential that Justice Investigators has. And that could be very, very good. So I'm actually interested in trying this one out. I don't think it's like insane or anything like that, but it seems like a pretty good curve filler for some decks out there. Next up, we've got Xenos Shadow Fighter. It's a 2-cost space unit in Cunning. It's a 2/2 hidden Separatist vehicle fighter. I don't think this one's all that relevant. A 2/2 in space for 2 is not that good. It's got hidden, but you know, you're gonna have to get some value at a Separatist tag or something to make this a little bit more exciting. Next up, we've got Escape Pod. This seemingly makes me want to push DJ into blue. You'll see later as I recorded some videos a little bit ago on DJ, but this Escape Pod is a 0/3, and when played, you may have this unit capture a friendly non-vehicle, non-leader unit. So the idea potentially could be like you put something in under another unit from DJ, and then you use this to free those units but capture the less valuable unit, and then you can maybe, in some cases, you could reset some HP bars or something going on with the Escape Pod. I mean, it's kind of a fun little gimmick with the 1 resource, you know, space unit here. And the fact that it's very easy to die isn't really a big deal because you kind of want it to die if you're capturing other friendly units. It is non-vehicle, which is relevant, but it's got to be some sort of like, not combo piece necessarily, but very big synergy piece that I'm thinking about with DJ specifically. Next up, we've got Hired Slicer. This is a 3-cost ground unit in Cunning. It's a 3/2, and on attack, you reveal the top 2 cards of a deck. If you do, you may exhaust a unit that shares a trait with one of those cards, and you put those cards on the bottom of that deck in a random order. So this can be kind of interesting in conjunction with the, did I say 3/2? It's a 3/4, with Sabe, where you attack, you get to discard the best card, and if your opponent still has a unit on top or a card that's really good on top, or maybe they do have a unit on top that shares a trait, you can get some exhausting going. There's some, I guess, some things you can do with it. I don't think it's particularly strong. A 3/4 isn't like amazing for 3. It's not horrible, but it's not amazing. And then the fact that you have to know the top cards of your opponent's deck really to be able to really utilize this, I'm not a huge fan. Next up, we've got Lightmaker. This is a 5-cost space unit in Cunning Heroism. It's a 3/4 Rebel Vehicle Capital Ship with Raid 4. And when it is defeated, you choose an arena. You exhaust each enemy unit in that arena. This is a 5-resource space unit that attacks for 7. That is a lot of damage. Raid 4 is a lot of raid. And there are some cool things you can do with this. If you are playing like, you know, Cunning Aggression, you can ready this up with a lot of different cards because it is that such a low amount of power. But I mean, this is just a very aggressive unit, very solid tempo play because your opponent deals with it. You exhaust all their units, right? So if they have to deal with it immediately, then they can't interact with your other units on board if they have units on board. So that could be kind of interesting. I mean, it's just a very aggressively statted unit in terms of, you know, power base. So maybe there's a place for it. Next up, we've got Renewed Friendship. It's a 4-cost event in Command Heroism. You return a unit from your discard pile to your hand, and you create 2 spy tokens. You essentially draw a card, and then you create 2 spy tokens. Honestly, I'm imagining in this style of deck where you're trying to get some value brewing with your discard pile, your hand, and all that, the 2 spy tokens are going to be pretty irrelevant. So just drawing a card that has already died or a card that you've discarded yourself seems pretty mediocre. I think one of the decks that really this might be trying to fit in is like a Bail Organa deck, where you're discarding cards that you choose, and then you're going to get more spy tokens, which might be relevant enough, but I'm not a huge fan of this Renewed Friendship. And then we got Heroic Arc 170, 4-cost space unit in Heroism. It's a 4/3, and when you play it, if you control damage unit, you may deal 2 damage to an enemy unit. So this comes in, you know, deals a little bit of damage, is a 4/3 for 4 in space. Nothing too crazy going on with this one. It doesn't have the rebel tag, which I think would be something that would make it a little bit more relevant, but you know, maybe you can get a little bit more value in this from the 2 damage. I'm waiting for a card that's going to double up when play triggers, to be honest, guys. That would be sick. I'm waiting for a leader, I should say. Next up, we've got some more cards that were posted yesterday. We've got Captain Rex, 6 cost ground unit in Heroism Vigilance here. 7/7, and when played and when this unit completes an attack, you give this unit and an enemy unit Sentinel for this phase. So you get a 7/7 Sentinel for 6, which is very, very big. It's very big, because if you look at some other Sentinels in the game, they're like 4 6s or 5 6s on 6 resources. Think of like Obi-Wan and Mandalorian in Vigilance Heroism. That's the stat line that we're looking at. Now, just give your opponent's unit Sentinel, but usually that's not going to matter because you've already gotten to attack whatever you choose with this unit first, and then you're forced to give a unit Sentinel. So this seems like a very, very obnoxious Sentinel to be playing in Vigilance Heroism. I'm curious if everyone's going to be able to do anything with this one. Maybe there's like some Obi-Wan back in set 3 Obi-Wan that can heal Captain Rex up and make the 501st shine again. Or maybe you play with Anakin Blue, and you finally get to put together the 501st, right? I mean, who knows? We've got Saw Gerrera's Ewing, 6 cost space unit in aggression. It's a 4/8 Saboteur, and when this unit completes an attack, you may attack with another aggression unit. I mean, a 6 cost space unit in aggression means that you probably are getting to the point of the game where you're not really likely to win if you are trying to put a bunch of units on board and attack with them all, which is what Saw Gerrera's space unit does here. It is a rebel, so you can do some cool things like play this with Rebel Assault, attack with a unit, attack with Saw Gerrera's Ewing, and attack with another unit. The problem with that is that you need 3 units on board on the 7 resource turn, because you need to have this be readied. I don't think this is very good at all. The fact that it needs to be readied up to even do anything and then attack again, and it doesn't have a lot of power on its own, doesn't seem very strong to me. Next up, we got Senate Warden. This is a 2 cost ground unit in Vigilance. It's a 2/2, and when defeated, you may disclose a Vigilance card. If you do, you give an experience token to a unit. Kind of an interesting when defeated ability. I mean, in Thrawn, you can double this up and get 2 experience tokens, which seems pretty strong. But it is also just a 2 resource 2/2, right? Like, if you think about like Vanguard Infantry, that's a 1 resource 1/2 that gives an experience token on death. I think this could be a little bit more aggressive, honestly. I think you could have made it like a 2/3, and it would have been a little bit more interesting. But 2/3 isn't exceptional. You kind of do need another ability to make that function. Maybe even a 3/2. A 3/2 could get a little bit dangerous, but it is a little bit aggressive. I don't know. A 2/2 seems just a little bit too weak to be able to be played. But we've got more cards, including one that has the Death Star on it. We've got 1 cost event, fully armed and operational, Cunning Villainy. If an opponent attacked your base during their previous action this phase, play a unit from your hand, give it ambush for this phase. This seems really interesting. I'm imagining this where when you get to your leader ability or your leader flip, and your opponent's like, oh, I got a unit here, I'm going to wait for their leader to deploy, and so in the meantime, I'm going to attack with this unit, and then you get to play your leader, play this, give something ambush, kill their unit, and do something cool like that. It's also just giving your units ambush for 1 resource, like a timely intervention, but in Cunning Villainy, which is kind of interesting in certain circumstances. I think that could be pretty strong as well. There are a lot of, cards in Villainy that maybe you're not playing Cunning that really do want to be ambushed out, or not playing a command rather, that you do want to be ambushed out. So, I mean, really the value is that this is plot, and so you could do it when you flip your leader, but it does require a specific set of circumstances to happen. I don't think it's that bad at all, though. I think it does have some potential here. Ambush is always a really strong keyword, right? This could just do amazing work. I mean, if you just think about all the different cards that this could work with, if you think about like Vader, you getting ambushed out, right? If you get the Gideon ambushed out or Rook ambushed out, I mean, there's just so many different options for you, and you could potentially basically have like a smuggle effect with timely, but instead of 2 resources, you spend 1. Next up, we've got the final leader of the set, and that is Cassian Andor. And Cassian looks pretty sweet as an aggression heroism leader. Friendly units that have damage in the opponent's base this phase cannot be attacked, as it says, unless they have Sentinel. So on the front side ability of this means that if you have initiative, let's say you start the initiative and you're going to play like a Sabine Green style of deck with, you're playing Cassian ECL, you're playing the Rebel strategy. You go with something like Sabine turn 1. Turn 2, you play your Fleet Lieutenant and you attack in with Sabine. Well, your opponent can choose, they can kill Fleet Lieutenant, or because they can't hit Sabine anymore, right? Or they can't at least attack it. And if you keep this going with like playing Rebel Assault, suddenly you attack with both units into base and both units can't be attacked by units now. There can be a little bit of a scaling thing happening here, especially if you're able to get those actions off first, being able to prevent your opponent from actually attacking. Now, here's the thing. In order for this to be good, you need a leader flip that actually supports this very aggressive strategy. And we've got a 6 to flip leader, which is already a knock against it. It's a 6-2, which is, okay, very, very sketchy. It has overwhelm, and while you have the initiative, this unit isn't defeated by having no remaining HP and can't be defeated by enemy card abilities. This, to me, is pretty weak. If you just think about it, your opponent knows that Cassian's coming. So on the 4th turn of the game, they're very likely to just take initiative. And if they do, then on turn 5, when you can deploy Cassian, it's going to be pretty tough to do anything with this guy. It's going to die no matter what, because it's just going to die to like literally anything in the entire game, as long as it doesn't have 1 power. So you kind of have to play your turn to where you have to take initiative. But if you're playing an aggressive deck, you need to be getting in damage. And oftentimes your opponent will be able to take initiative because you will have more actions to take than they will. And it's not like you can just take initiative and ignore a bunch of damage oftentimes, because if you do that, then you're probably going to get outscaled, because we're getting to the point of the game that you are going to struggle, right? So I think there was something that I wish this was more of, and that's not even to mention that, like, let's say you do take initiative and you do get at least 1 attack in with Cassian, that has to end the game. Otherwise your opponent attacks with the unit and then just claims initiative, and then their Cassian just dies, right? So I think this is going to be weak. The leader flip, at least. The front side action is very intriguing to me, but the flip side, having the fact that it is 2 toughness, is so hard to deal with. The nice thing about it is that it is a 6 powered leader on the flip. So if you are able to get attacks in with it, this thing can end the game very quickly. I think the biggest strength of this is, you know, having some sort of situation where you have a bunch of units on board and your opponent can't really stall out to wait for Cassian. So you just attack with all your units. They can't be attacked this turn because your front side action, and then you just wait to flip Cassian. They don't do anything, then you just claim initiative, and now you have initiative for the next turn for Cassian to deploy. So that's something that I think could be interesting. There's a lot of kind of, I think, mini games with Cassian where you really need to know how to control initiative in order for Cassian to be very strong, and that goes for both sides of his leader, right? So this one I have hope for. I think it's a really sweet ability. I think the stat line is very unique and it is very aggressive. It's just that, can you actually get in any damage whatsoever? And that will be the question that we will have to answer. Next up, we've got Remote Escort Tank. This is a 6-cost ground unit in Heroism. It's a 5/5. When played, you give this unit Sentinel for this phase, and it's got plot. So it comes down, you can give something plot. You can give your leader plot, or Sentinel. You can give your, Remote Escort Tank Sentinel. This obviously kind of references itself as you deploy your leader, and then you have your escort tank to block it. Not too bad. Not too bad. Next up, we've got Inner Rim Coalition. This is a 6-cost ground unit, aggression heroism, 6/5. And when it's defeated, you may ready a unit that costs 5 or less. This seems a little bit more interesting in decks that have 5 to deploy leaders, because you'll have a guarantee unit that you can actually ready. But there are a couple of cards in here that when you ready them up, you know, like a Podameron, could be disgusting, like absolutely gross, right? Where you just get so much value and it's just impossible to go on and win the game afterwards. But I do think this is one that is going to be intermittent value depending on the situation. And next up, we've got Karis Nemec. This one looks like a pretty strong rebel unit. We've got a 2-cost ground unit in Aggression Heroism. It's a 3/2 rebel with hidden, so it can't be attacked immediately. And then when it's defeated, you may disclose Aggression Heroism. And if you do, you create a spy token and get this, you ready it. This is a 3/2 rebel on turn 1. Already, I'm like, okay, let's see what you got, because a 3/2 rebel on turn 1 is already intriguing. Hidden, okay, can't be attacked, might be even relevant in the later stages of the game when a lot of 2-drops aren't. Okay, and we have a when defeated trigger that immediately gets in damage. This looks strong. This looks very strong. I am very excited. I think this could slot into Sabine very solidly. I think this could slot into any rebel deck that's going to be using that as kind of a synergy piece. Or synergy trait. This looks good, and it also has his manifesto, the Nemec's manifesto, that seems to pair really well for him. This is a 1-cost upgrade in Aggression Heroism. When first off, you have to attach to a non-vehicle unit, and the attached unit gains the rebel trait, and when defeated, deal 1 damage to each enemy unit for each other friendly rebel unit, and it's +1/+1. This one seems good, right? 1 resource, you give something +1/+1. Already not the worst. But think about this in like Sabine. You play this on Sabine. She is a 3/6 now. Okay, kind of threatening. You probably have 1 or 2 other rebel units on the board. Your opponents kind of need to deal with Nemec's manifesto. Let's say this is a 1-cost upgrade that gets in 1 damage immediately and then gets in 2 damage after Sabine dies. Is that a good card? Yeah, that's a great card. That is a great card. I mean, that is fantastic. So I think this has a lot of potential and a little bit scary for Sabine out there, as those rebel decks are really going to come into its own. I mean, you're going to be playing a bunch of rebel cards anyways, and if you're rebel assaulting, you're going to be in a situation where you oftentimes will be able to play 2 or attack with 2 or 3 units, and you'll have those on the board. So seeing this deal 1 to 2 damage when the unit's defeated is not going to be surprising at all, and it gives you +1/+1 immediately. So again, in decks like Sabine, I think this has a lot of potential. Of course, the most interesting part about this is like with the Valiant Commandos. Like, can you imagine like you're playing Luthen, for example, and you play Valiant Commando, you play something else or whatever, you get to Luthen deploy, you deploy Luthen, you've already put Nemec's manifesto on the Valiant Commando, you get in for a damage for 4, and then you deal the 3 damage because you defeat it, you deal 2 more damage because of Luthen, and then you deal like another 2 to 3 damage because of Nemec's manifesto. I mean, that is a lot of damage to the base. So I think there's some cool things you can do with this card. And a few more comments here. We've got Corellian Hounds, 5-cost ground unit in Aggression. It's a 5/5 creature, and if opponent controls no ground units, this unit enters play ready. Some people were joking like, oh wow, Vader yellow getting even worse. Honestly, this looks pretty solid as like a sideboard option. If your opponent's playing a mainly space deck, a 5-resource 5/5 that immediately readies is very aggressive. Like, imagine slotting this in like Sabine, and instead of playing like Poe Dameron and ECL and Wrecker and all that stuff, you just slot in Corellian Hounds, and on that turn where normally you would play Poe Dameron or your ECL at Poe Dameron, well, you were racing them all game anyway, so an extra 5 damage is exactly where you want to be. Seems, honestly, one of the better commons that we've seen today. Next up, we've got Elite Squad. This one's an 8-cost ground unit in Aggression Villainy. It's a 6/8 with grit, and when played / when damage is dealt to this unit, you may deal 2 damage to another unique unit. Obviously, I harken back to Jabba the Hutt with Aggression, with Crosshair, and all those types of cards, and Fifth Brother and stuff like that. Grit is interesting, but if you think about this in isolation, it's an 8-resource 6/8. Not good. With grit, okay, can do, I guess, some things in some spots when you actually have damage on it. And then you deal 2 damage to another specifically unique unit. This seems pretty bad. If you are able to deal damage to this Elite Squad, like with Crosshair, and then deal another 2 damage and another 2 damage and another 2 damage, that's where it can get a little bit interesting. But, you know, I don't know if the payoff's really worth it when it's an 8-cost unit in the first place. And then next up, we've got Hutt Cartel Starfighter. It's a 3-cost space unit in a villainy. It's a 3/5, and when playing, you may deal 2 damage to this unit. This is one of those types of cards, again, with like Jabba the Hutt, where you can start working on your ability because you have damaged units. A 3-resource 3/3 underworld that, you know, maybe synergies or something is probably not good enough. The stat line's just a little bit too weak, but maybe there's some potential there. And then I think this is the last one we've got here. We've got Queen Amidala, 5-cost ground unit in Command Heroism. It's a 5/3, and when you play her, you create 2 spy tokens. If damage will be dealt to the unit, you may defeat another friendly unit that shares a trait with this unit, and if you do, you prevent that damage. So the idea is you put up spy tokens, and then you let the spy tokens take your place and die. Very thematic, very fitting for Queen Amidala, especially in the first couple of movies here. So a 5/3, not a great stat line by any means for 5. Creating 2 spy tokens, not particularly strong, but it goes wide, so that's kind of something to go for. We've noted how strong Palpatine has felt. And then being able to like move your damage away from Amidala so that you can actually attack in with her, that seems decent. I think you're going to have to get value out of officials or something with the spy tokens in order for this card to be good, though. And I just don't really see a great pathway for that to happen right now. And I think that's the biggest problem with Queen Amidala. Next up, we've got Renowned Dignitary, 6-cost ground unit in Command Heroism. It's a 5/6 overwhelm and heal 2 damage from your base for each friendly official unit. Obviously, with Queen Amidala that we just looked at, this card looks absolutely nuts. You play your leader, you play Amidala, you play this, you heal 8. That's awesome. Actually, it counts itself, so it's heal 10. I mean, that is pretty awesome. So you can do some crazy things with that. It is a 5/6 for 6 with overwhelm. It's not the worst stat line, but I mean, it is just a very grind heavy, official style. I'm gonna heal up and grind out this game. So maybe that is good enough. And then lastly, we've got Beloved Orator. All 3 of these cards kind of fit together. Just imagine the curve of like going Beloved Orator, this 3-cost ground unit in Command Heroism, 2/3 with create a spy token when it's played, into something else, into Queen Amidala, into the Renowned Dignitaries. I mean, you could potentially have 5, 6, 7 officials out on the board. Not likely though, because your opponent is probably just going to be killing off your officials as you go along if you're playing the official deck. But I mean, you could have a lot of fodder for Queen Amidala, or you could have a very big heal coming in for you, which is very, very interesting at least. So I think that's kind of a fun mechanic with the officials at this point. But that's going to wrap up basically spoiler season for set 6. Then now we get to dive into our pre-release guides, the leader tier lists. There is, I think, a few more cards that have yet to be revealed, but at least the leaders have been fully revealed as of right now, unless they're going to surprise me with something. But I mean, there's 18 leaders out now, so I don't think there's going to be any more. And so let me know what you think about the set so far. At a first glance, guys, just giving my first impressions, it looks pretty weak. It feels pretty weak as well. I've played with a lot of the cards, as you all have seen on videos, and there hasn't really been something that I've been like truly amazed by. But I'll go more in depth on that in my leader tier list video. But let me know what you think, guys. There is a lot of interesting things going on, a lot of cool things going on. I just don't think a lot of the set in general is as powerful as we've seen before by a large margin. So thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you all for the next one.